Kelowna, one of the most beautiful places in the world to live, surrounded by provincial parks, pine forests, vineyards, orchards, and mountains. Wouldn't it be great if there was a podcast about our love of Kelowna? Oh no, it's real. This is I Love Kelowna, an interview-style podcast about the fabulous and fascinating people that make up our great city and the Okanagan. Intimate conversations with entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, creatives, and anyone who has an interesting story to tell about how they're contributing to our wonderful home. This is I Love Kelowna, and here's your host, Luke J. Minkus.
So Blake, really glad to finally meet you. I've heard a ton about you, and you've got a great story to tell, so I want to thank you for your time today. And you first came to Kelowna in 2003, so tell us a little bit about that story. How did you get here?
So in 2002, I was involved in a snowmobile accident that left me paralyzed. And I was flown to Vancouver General Hospital, where I did had my surgery, and then I was in GF Strong, which is the rehab facility down there. And I happened to meet another kid at the time that was injured a week after me, and he was from Kelowna as well. So we went through that whole process of rehab and physio and just trying to figure life out again together. I became really close with him and his family, and he was really struggling with dealing with being paralyzed, and so I kind of just took it on the chin and moved on, and his parents asked me if I would come up and mentor him for some period of time, and I didn't really have anywhere else to go because my home back in Calgary wasn't wheelchair accessible. None of my family's homes were wheelchair accessible, so I moved up here, and I lived with them for a year, and then I've been here ever since and fell in love with the place.
Right, most people do when they first come here. So this friend of yours, was he? He became a friend. Yeah. Was he the same age as you, roughly?
No, he was 10 years younger than me. So I was 28, and I think he was 19 when it happened to him. So, yeah just difference in age and life experiences. So I was able to just kind of take it on the chin and keep going. It's just my personality.
Some people react differently to, things that happen.
You never know how you're going to react to any of this when it happens. It's one of those things where, so 3 days before I got paralyzed, I was sitting in my living room with my friends, and we were watching this show on a guy that was doing sit skiing. He'd been paralyzed, and I looked at them and I'm like, if that ever happens to me, just kill me. I don't want to be like that. Wow. 3 days later, I'm laying in the hospital, paralyzed, and you never know how you're going to deal with it until it happens.
Yeah. So you were always an athletic person.
Yeah.
So this is really, a shocking thing to have happen to anybody.
It was a very big change.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And you've accomplished so many things with your body since this accident. Why don't you tell us some of the things that you've been able to do?
So, I've just always been one of those guys, and I just sat there when it happened, and I'm like, I'm not going to let this beat me. I'm just going to do everything that I still want to do. I'll just figure out a different way to do it. So the first thing I did was 6 months to the day after my injury, I swam across Okanagan Lake as a fundraiser.
Wow, 6 months.
Yeah. So I just started practicing swimming, and me and my buddy would just go like 3 days a week and just swim until I could do the lake. So I did from the old ferry docks to Main Beach, and then I got back into working out, and I was training a lot. So I did. I started looking at how I could be involved with the weightlifting for the national team, and maybe trying to get involved with the Olympics. So I was doing that, and I was having trouble figuring out how to get involved with that, because it's not that easy to find those channels. And while I was doing that, I wanted to do my dive instructor course. It's something that I'd always been involved with.
So you were a scuba diver before.
Yeah, and I'd started to do my my dive master prior to my injury. So I went and looked at seeing if I could do that, and I got involved with there's a business here, Diving Dynamics, and they said, yeah, we'll figure out a way to make this work. So we went through the process with PADI of figuring out how I could actually do the course, and it would still be done in a way that I actually got the certification that everybody else did, and it wasn't impeded or anything. And so we had to change some of the curriculum with it, and how we actually went about doing the training. But I had to do everything that everybody else did.
Right.
And so
that's like planks in the pool, floating.
Yeah, rescue in the water, towing people through the ocean, while I'm swimming with one arm, the whole bit. So I ended up being the first person in the world to get certified as a dive instructor as a paraplegic.
Wow.
So that was
Amazing.
Super cool experience. It was 5 months of hell, really.
Right? It must be very, very difficult.
It's very intense. And we were diving in the lake in February and March, so it was freezing cold, and everybody else had dry suits, and I couldn't have one because just the way the dry suits work with your feet, if they get air in them, you'll float to the top, and I couldn't spin myself around, so I had a wetsuit, and it was not enjoyable.
I'll bet. So did you get any pushback from anybody? Like anybody saying this can't be done?
No, they were awesome about it. They really wanted to see how to make it happen. So, the guys at Diving Dynamics did just an awesome job of helping me get through it. And my instructor, Wally, at the time, he's just like gung-ho with the whole thing. So it was awesome. It was super cool.
Do you still dive tonight?
Yeah, I still dive. Not as often as I was then. It's just I don't want to dive in the cold water, so it's when I go on vacation, then I'll go diving.
Right.
Yeah.
I've gone diving in the Cayman Islands. Is there anything to see in this lake? I mean, it seems pretty murky from up above.
Yeah, there's not a lot in the lake, to be honest with you. I think I've done 110 dives. Right. I've seen about 2 fish.
Right. So it's pretty murky.
Some rubber boots and some plastic chairs.
Right.
Yeah. There's a couple spots, actually. There's an old milk truck on the west side that you can go dive at, and then up on the north end towards Vernon, there's a paddle wheeler that's been sunk, so you can dive there as well.
Have you ever gone to the tropics or?
Yeah, so when we were doing the course, we actually went to Grand Cayman for a month.
Oh, beautiful.
I started my diving in Australia. That's when I originally did my first dives. So I dove Australia, New Zealand, Fiji. I've been lucky enough, Thailand, so I've been lucky enough to do quite a few places, Turks and Caicos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
cool. Do you know, have there been any other paraplegics that have gotten certified
since then? I'm not sure. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, and you've done wakeboarding, mountain biking. How do you mountain bike as a paraplegic?
So I have an off-road hand cycle, and it's got suspension and that with it. So you can pedal up on it. It's got 24 gears, and I do knocks quite often in the summer, and then you just come down. I've taken it up to Silver Star, which is a rough ride, and but yeah, you just find ways around it. So as long as you have the ability to have those toys, then you can do what you want to do, which is pretty cool.
Has the technology changed much since 2002?
Tons.
Yeah. So there's more devices and more things
there's
you can
so
do.
Much more available now. Yeah. It's I mean, the first bikes, they were rigid frame bikes, and now they're full suspension, so those are amazing to ride.
What's the difference between a rigid bike and a suspension?
So anybody that does any mountain biking will know that there's no shocks or anything on a rigid frame, and it takes quite a bit of toll on your body when you're, especially because I'm using my arms as my shocks when I'm coming down. So with the new bikes, they have those full suspension bikes with the independent arms, and then the actual back has a shock in it as well. So just absorbs.
Much more comfortable and efficient, I guess.
Yeah, much more comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you find like a lot of buildings are still not accessible, like here in Kelowna and wherever you travel to?
So Kelowna is really interesting, and it actually has the highest wheelchair users per capita because it's so wheelchair friendly. There's a few places here that, you know, are a little bit hard to get into, but most people are always willing to give you a hand. Yeah. So that.
So you might have a couple of steps type of thing.
Yeah, you might have a couple steps or something that does it's a little bit more difficult to get into.
Yeah.
But for the most part, Kelowna is pretty accessible. Outside of Kelowna, it just depends on where you are.
Depends.
Yeah.
So, and I guess any new buildings have to be made accessible.
Yeah, the new buildings, they all have bylaws that they have to be accessible, so you never have any real issues with that.
Right. I'm curious, your friend from 2002, that his parents asked you to come and mentor him. What happened to him? So,
he had like PTSD with his, and
was it a real traumatic?
It was a car accident.
Okay.
And so he struggled for quite a while. I'd say it took him about 10 years to kind of get through all of that, but he's doing a lot better now. So
great. Is he still in Kelowna?
Yeah.
Are you still friends?
Yeah, he's born and raised here. So
yeah. So you still talk to him?
I still talk to him. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I had so many questions. Let's see. And it's really easy to edit. It's time consuming, but it's easy, so don't worry.
Do you want me to talk about the weightlifting?
Yeah, tell us about weightlifting.
Okay, so I'd always been involved in bodybuilding and at the gym, so before I got injured, and then once I got injured, I just went back to the gym and started working out, and then, funny thing is, my bench was just as much as it was before I got injured. And so I started looking at competing, and there was a girl here in town that was doing weightlifting, and she asked me if I would want to do like a weightlifting contest or bench contest. So I was like, sure, I'll go. And so I did that, and I actually ran into one of the national team coaches at that competition, and he was working with a special needs individual. So I got some contact information, and then I started trying to figure out how I could maybe make the national team. So I did a bunch of competitions, and then I actually got to the point where I qualified for the national team, and that was awesome. So it was super great experience to be able to travel around the world and do different competitions. I did the Pan Pacific Paralympics in Australia. I did the Worlds in Greece, which was a qualifier for the 2008 Olympics, and then I competed there's another world event in Vegas. So yeah, it was just such an awesome experience to be able to travel and get to meet some other people that are doing the same things as you. That's great.
I bet you must be an inspiration to a lot of people, because like your friend, at least at the start, I know a lot of people would be so devastated by this and kind of feel hopeless, and you just took life head on.
I was just really fortunate that I was in a place, good place mentally and emotionally when it happened. So I'd just taken a year off of work and was traveling and just came back. I'd come up with this life motto that I wanted to live my life by, and like I said, you never know how you're going to deal with it until it happens. And I've never been one of those people to just sit back and curl up in a ball and let life beat me. So if I inspire people, that's wonderful, and I hope that I do. But I'm just living my life.
Yeah. Well, you've actually done some public speaking on these topics.
Yes.
So what are some of the things you tell people?
I mean, the big thing really is that if you're in this situation, or you have any situation, because the way I look at it is everybody has a disability.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's just visible.
Right.
We all deal with different things, and it's all hard to deal with. So you just have to accept those things and move on,
mm-hmm.
and just do everything that you want to do.
Right.
Just figure out a way to do it.
Yeah. So true. So in 2012, you traveled to India for some treatments.
Right.
How did that go? Tell us about those treatments.
So I was doing some research online, and I found out there was a doctor in India that was doing stem cell treatments, mm-hmm. and she'd had some success with paralysis. So I ended up actually reaching out to a guy from Victoria, mm-hmm. That had gone, and he'd got function back in his legs, and he was able to stand with it.
Wow.
So I contacted the doctor, asked if I could come out there, and I went out to India the first trip. It was for 2 months, and they do stem cell treatments for those 2 months. You're doing physio 3 times a day.
So what is stem cell treatments? What are they doing to you?
So
actually?
There's different types of stem cells, but she was using embryonic stem cells, and at the time we weren't allowed to do that in Canada. So what they do is they do an epidural, and they inject them into your spine. Okay. And then the theory is that they're going to regenerate your spinal cord and give you back function or movement or sensation. And so they give you, there's 5 different stem cell treatments that they do throughout the day. And then once every 7 to 10 days, they'll do an epidural on you for 3 days. Okay. And so you want the epidurals because you get the most stem cells in those treatments, but you're laid up for 3 days because you're in a bed. Right. So I got, after the first 3 weeks, I started getting function back in my right quad, which was amazing.
So what was the first thing that went through your mind when you could feel something, or
no, I couldn't feel anything,
but you could move.
But I could move. So it was the weirdest thing, because I'm laying there with the physiotherapist, and he's saying, "Okay, push, 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 push," and I'm pushing, and he's like, "Yes, yes, yes," and then I look down and my leg's moving, and I'm, how the hell is that happening? I can't feel it. I don't know what's going on. So
in your mind, though, you're trying to push your quad.
I was trying to connect, because the one great thing for me was that because I'd been in bodybuilding, I was really attached to my muscles and how they function. So I could remember what it felt like. So I just was remembering what it would be like to use my quad to move my leg, and then it started moving. So amazing. It was awesome. So I got my right quad back, and then about a week later I got my left quad back. So I just did lots of physio on that. I came home, I was doing physio 6 days a week for the next 9 months, and then I went back again. When I went back again the second time, I got my hamstrings back, more sensation.
So you started, after a time, you started to actually feel things.
Yeah. It was the sensation. It was different sensations. So there's
different than what it used to be.
Yeah. So, but it was sensation. Just in different areas and different spots. So I started to get some surface sensation back. There was some muscle sensation. So it was very mixed bag of tricks, really.
Do you remember the first time you felt something? Do you remember that?
Yes. So it was my foot, actually. We were doing physio, and I could feel when he was rubbing my foot. Wow. So, which was pretty cool. Yeah.
So then what happened?
So I went back for a third trip, and after the third trip, I came home, and I was doing physio again 6 days a week. And I just ended up getting to a point where I wasn't getting any further ahead. So, and each time that I went was $50,000. It was
wow.
huge.
I was going to ask you, like,
financial.
Must be expensive.
Yeah.
So that's flight and treatment, everything.
$50,000 for the treatment.
Yeah.
That you're there,
wow.
and then your flight and everything
is on top.
Yeah. So $50,000 will give you the treatment and your stay at her hospital with food and accommodations and that.
Right. Okay.
But then you got to pay for your flight. So after 3 times and like the 6 months down the road, I just wasn't getting any further ahead, and I kind of had to make a decision if I was going to keep going with this or if I was going to call it quits. And I mean, I put in 110%, and I wasn't getting to the point where I could functionally use the movements.
Right.
Like, I wasn't going to be able to stand. I probably wasn't going to be able to walk. So
you kind of hit a wall with it.
With it. So then I had to make a decision to say, okay, I tried,
right,
and it didn't happen. So
do you, looking back on that experience, do you regret spending the $150,000, or are you glad that you did it?
No, I'm glad that I did it, because I always would have wondered what if.
Right.
And I don't ever want to have that in the past, like wondering what if. So it was really hard, and it was actually more difficult to give up that hope the second time than it was to be paralyzed the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was a rough go for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
What were you doing for a living in 2002 before the accident?
So I had a general contracting company in Calgary.
Okay.
And my buddy of mine and I, we moved out there and doing that.
Right. And since then?
Number of things. So after I moved here, I was buying and selling houses, fixing and flipping them for a little bit. And then I actually was working with a guy that I went to high school with out of Phoenix when that whole thing crashed.
Right.
And we were buying and selling places down in the States.
This is like 08?
No, like 12, 13, 14.
So after the crash.
Yeah. So we were just buying them at auction. As basically one of those reality TV shows.
Right.
But not on TV.
Yeah.
And then, just fixing and flipping them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did some currency trading after that for 4.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm with TD as a mortgage specialist.
Yeah.
So
when did you become a mortgage specialist?
I've been doing this for 2 years and 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
it makes sense, right? Because you knew, even from your contractor days, you knew about real estate, you knew about financing.
It's just a very different transformation. Yeah, like from one side of it to the other.
Yeah.
From getting the lending to actually being the lender.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has it been challenging in the last year or so with all the new rules and the new taxes? And it's kind of putting a damper on the market a little bit.
It's definitely put a damper on the market. Things have slowed down quite a bit. The new rules have made it a little bit more challenging to get people qualified, definitely.
Right.
But there's still ways to make that happen. It's just
I always like to tell people, like, we just have to adjust our expectations. If you were dreaming of a huge house, maybe it's going to be a little bit more modest house. But if your credit's good and you've got the employment history, you can still get into a house. It's just going to be a lower price point than we thought 2 years ago.
Right. So that's kind of the thing, is you have people that had this idea of what their home was going to be, and now they've had to adjust it, and sometimes that people don't like that.
They don't like that, yeah. And I think it takes time to, like, in my experience, like, recessions kind of last for a year or two, and people adjust, and then they get tired of sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And they want to get back into it. So it's reality, right?
It's just the way things go.
Yeah.
They say there's 7-year cycles in the housing market. So
yeah, seems to be.
Yeah.
Any predictions for 2019 for real estate?
No, I don't want to do that. There's no crystal ball, so
right.
I'm not going to put that out there.
Is there anything else we didn't cover? I think we covered everything.
Yeah, we covered lots.
It's about 23 minutes, so that's kind of perfect.
Yeah, sure.
Blake, who would you like to nominate to come on the show?
So, my thoughts is that Justina Lee Stoles, she's a realtor at Century 21. She's awesome and really involved in the community and doing a lot for Kelowna.
Yeah.
She loves it here just as much as I do, so I think she'd be great for you to have a conversation with.
Yeah, I know Justina, so I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Well, Blake, thanks again for your time, and hope to see you around.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. I appreciate it.
Luke Mankus is a realtor. He loves what he does. We asked Luke if he had any regrets about moving here in 2011, and he always says, yeah, one regret, and that is he didn't move here sooner. When Luke came here, he didn't know anyone. He didn't know the neighborhoods or anything or anyone besides his daughter, who was 6 years old at the time. So he knows what it's like. Now, he's an expert and has helped well over 100 single people, couples, families, and investors with their real estate needs in the Okanagan. If you're new to our beautiful city, Luke can help you get connected with great lawyers, dentists, carpenters, landscapers, swimming pool installers, you name it. And whether you're new to Kelowna or not, Luke knows real estate. He can help you find a great property, negotiate a good deal, and hold your hand all the way through the process until the day you get your shiny new set of keys. Luke is known as a no-pressure kind of guy. He's had clients where it took even a year or more to get them into a property. He just doesn't believe in rushing things. On the other hand, when you decide it's time to act, he's diligent and he'll work day and night until the job is done. Give Luke Mankus a call or a text message at any time. 778-215-4273. Again, that's 778-215-4273. 778-215-4273 to chat with Luke about real estate.